What's happening, friends? Welcome to the Ricksicanshow. I am Rick, your host.
That
Pleasure
he
to be
is.
with you today. Got Donnie working the digital side for me.
Here I are.
Here I are. Just wanted to stop in briefly and talk about the craziness of the world.
He just wanted to come and say he was right again about Canada.
Yes. Should we review that? It makes me feel so smart. Calling out a week before, like nobody knew who this guy was. The new Canadian Prime Minister. No, it wasn't a real election. Uh, it was just kind of a quick vote and appointed by to come in. I believe he's the fixer. I believe he's there to handle the Canada handover to the United States. That is the what was told to me by one of the supposed elite people I bump into. And so that it's interesting. So I just sit there and he's like, we beat the United States in hockey and they won't get, Canada's not for sale. I'm like, okay, I don't believe anything he says. We just have to watch and see how the actors play out. But it's uh it's amazing to watch the chaos, to watch the actors. It's amazing drama, a novela, what do you want to call it? Soap opera. It's crazy.
I like soap.
You like soap?
Yes.
So you,
Not a big fan of opera though.
so you've been to prison.
I know. I would survive prison. I drop myself too much in the shower. Uh,
Yeah.
like dang it again. Thank God I'm not in prison.
Whoops.
uh,
Whoopsie.
there it is.
Oh, geez, this just went downhill quick.
Randy Hipper just jumped on.
Yeah, welcome, welcome. Yeah, so the Canada thing's interesting. Don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. Um,
Yes.
there's going to be lots of moves and drama that these actors are going to do as things transition. But what I was told, right, Mark Carney was appointed by the Crown. Like the whole thing was like handed back to the Crown, and the Crown's like, we want our guy in there. Mark Carney handled the Brexit, pulling out of the euro. This guy is a fixer. So, very capable. He's in the securities world. I keep thinking, and this is above my pay grade, folks, but
Is there anything that's not above your pay
all of
grade?
it's above my pay grade. Like, why am I even
I hear you
talking?
say that a lot.
Well, it's because I can't prove any of this. Like, I have no receipts. I have no nothing. I just get little tips here and there, and then follow the rabbit hole, down to the bottom, and things happen, and you're like crazy.
What's up, Rogan Saw? I hope I said that right. Phrase, good to see you.
So, yeah. So as Canada transitions to I mean, Carney helped
LA
with
23.
Brexit. This guy is securities. He's a banker. This guy deals with, So I'm told that this is trust and treaty stuff going on. And so it makes me wonder how sovereign countries really are. If more things are happening behind closed doors, these deals, uh, it, it's crazy for me to even think about. I can't even comprehend it. I just be like, okay, this is what the elite are planning. Let's watch and see how it unfolds. But Mark Carney is key to making this happen.
Interesting.
Even though he'll say we're not for sale, da, 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 da. You might as well just take the knot off there. We're for sale. I don't know what the deal was. I heard it's a done deal. I heard this has been in the plan for a long time. Uh, and it'll be interesting how they sell it to us, and that's where the actors come in to sell it. It, it it's crazy. It's the greatest show on earth, folks. Uh, it's absolutely crazy to watch this stuff happen. So the only reason I'm right is because I was told a week and a half ago that Carney would be appointed PM as Canada goes through probate and liquidation, that he will handle that. In the
Yeah.
meantime, he will say, "We're not for sale," da 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 da, and then you'll see tariff wars and trade wars and all this stuff happen, and it'll look like it's a natural process of
Distractions.
being absorbed. Um, and China must be in on it too, because they're like, Canada, you are a jerk, 100% tariff. Canada's just going to get squeezed
What's up, Irish swagger?
through this process until they submit. Personally, I believe for what's coming, Canada and the United States and Mexico and Greenland, we need each other. And yes, we're going to have to go through the drama, the the politicians acting and throwing their fits through the drama process for us to become united in one. But we need each other a lot for what's coming, and I think they know it. The world is going through a whole new system, and it'll be very interesting. And it's kind of hard for us to comprehend a whole new system. Artificial intelligence, crypto, they need each other, just like Canada and the US need each other. Like they got to work together. The quantum financial system is once everything I think is all put together, that I think that's the last thing to roll out. So you still need um, uh, the quantum computing, the quantum internet, and I can't even comprehend these things. Like it blows my mind. I'm like, I can barely, I surf the net. That's as far as my knowledge goes. So I can't comprehend, how Web3 or quantum computing takes everything away from the middleman and brings it to you, or you now control, you are your banker, you are your own media. Everything becomes to the individual. um, Manufacturing more and more will be in the home. You got 3D printers out there doing more and more. It's like a microwave. Everyone's going to have one soon. And at some point, he was like, "Oh yeah, I just downloaded this app and I'm gonna print this out." And I don't,
Speak of 3D printing, I just watched a movie yesterday called Mickey 17. Have you heard of it?
no.
Where they print humans with biological matter. They use from whatever, however they collect the biological matter.
Sweet, I want one.
Yeah, and it's this big thing on like there was argument on whether it should be if humane and all that. And they could back up their memories. I mean, it doesn't sound too far off from what they're doing right now.
Maybe they already have it. The, it's it's wild. The I mean, there's the conspiracies we're waiting for things to happen is like they have these med beds. And you're like, what's that? Oh, it's frequency. They can cure any illness, and the technology's supposedly been there for a long time. And they're like, that's you know, the cure, the lies of everything we've been taught. The day of reckoning is here, and the truth needs to come out. Yesterday, I talked about like the teeter totter. The lie. We're at the point where the lie and the truth. The We're at a point where the truth has to come out, or the damage will be too great.
Too great.
Too great. That's great. Too great. So they have to bring out the truth piece by piece. And yesterday, I compared it to, you know, maybe you could follow me down this little trail.
Uh-oh.
Um, you know, uh,
Is it weird that I'm getting scared?
yes, there's no such thing as little people in the North Pole, guys. You know, and
What?
they're not little. They're people that live up north are actually tall people, and the people that live up north don't have pointy ears.
What?
I'm sorry to break it to you.
Come on.
Um, what else? And actually, they're not really good at building things.
What's up, illogic?
The things that you get actually comes from regular stores and factories. It's not from little people in the North Pole.
But they're so good at making toys.
Yeah, well, that's what they say.
Well, when I grew up, my mom talked about Santa Claus, and she also talked about saving money on your auto repairs, like you can at Brothers Automotive. Brothers Automotive is the lowest auto repair in Moses Lake and surrounding area. They do everything from brakes to engine swaps to you name it. Rick had a windshield. No, was it a windshield wiper?
Yeah,
Windshield
it
wiper
wouldn't
motor.
stop. It
Yeah.
wouldn't stop.
So he had them do that, and they did a really good job at it, and it's affordable. I think they can sometimes come get the car from you and drop it off when it's done, so you can keep working. Or if you're stuck at home, same thing. Brothers Automotive 761-9744. Again, Brothers Automotive 761-9744. Call today and schedule an appointment. Thanks, Mom, for telling me that when I was growing up.
Brothers Automotive. And then they tell you, you know what, reindeer don't fly. And then, reindeer don't have red noses.
Wait,
And,
what? Whoa, this is getting weird.
and people get stuck in chimneys. Anyway, they're exposing the lies, but they haven't told you Santa's not real yet. But they're exposing the lie piece by piece, and they haven't told us the whole process.
Most recently with have you seen Red One with
There's
The
a
Rock?
lie. Red one, yeah.
Yeah, so they're expanding into some of the other myths around Santa Claus with Krampus and the Winter Witch um and a lot of it was if you study the Santa Claus stuff and the naughty list and all that was a good excuse of why children were missing. Like Krampus and the Winter Witch would take bad children away. And one thing we had, I found it strange, is that history has proven that child trafficking has been happening for eons.
For a long time.
So, like, now this fat man's coming down people's chimneys. Like, what's the real story behind it? You know,
Taking the children, eating mermaids,
eating mermaids. I've never heard
eating
that one.
children. Yeah, there's this little media thing where these people were invited to some elite meal and it was a mermaid, but they're saying there's no such thing as mermaids. They're eating children. I don't know. This is above my pay grade. See, everything's above my pay grade. I have no receipts for this. Sorry, folks. It's just a crazy thing on the internet right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to eat a mermaid or a human.
Yeah. Well, you already have. Soylent Green, folks. It's out there. Yeah. You already have.
No, thank you.
They're eating the people. Probably get kicked off of TikTok for Soylent Green. That's a violation. um,
What's up, Jason Sullivan?
so something that bugs me about politicians and somehow Trump falls into this category a lot yesterday is I don't like it when politicians like show favoritism towards a company. It's been happening for a long time. You have lobbyists, you have corporations. We live in an oligarchy where you got like the deep state, you got corporations, then the government, and then we the people. And so they have this thing what they call like the Hatch Law or Hatch Act, where
In 1939, the Hatch Act. Yeah.
government's supposed to be nonpartisan. And in fact, when I go do a lot of things and they're like, oh, you need to have this inspection done at your business. And they go, here's a list of all the contractors in the area. And I was like, come on now, tell me which one's the best. I can't tell you that. They tell me. I was like, well, who do you recommend? I can't say. You just got to call and pick one. But I'm like, but I want who's the cheapest? I want some inside information. And they're like, I can't help you with that. You know,
Really quick, I want to respond to Irish Swagger. I disagree. I thought the movie was great. I enjoyed it in its entirety. We can discuss that at length later.
what, Red One? Is that what
No,
you're talking
Mickey 17.
about? Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot of insight there, and I think
Well,
we can agree to disagree.
but there is a conspiracy that um, the elite have to tell you what they're going to do before they do it, or whatnot. So there is that conspiracy that movies are manipulated to educate us in a certain way. I haven't seen it, so I don't know. But I don't know what to believe anymore. I am a lost child in this world, wandering around.
It's pretty crazy.
But anyway, so Trump yesterday buys a Tesla in front of the White House, and a lot of people are upset about this because, like, hey, he's supposed to be nonpartisan. as if anybody is these days. And is he violating this Hatch Act? Is he this or that? And I have to say, I don't like the Trump coin. I don't like that if he's promoting Tesla, whatever. I'm like, I think that's lame-o. I think it's like I don't know. I would question the integrity on that. I think it's poor business
Well,
as a politician.
question is, where does he live?
Where does he live?
Yeah, the White House, right?
Mar-a-Lago.
So, and he ordered something online or by the phone, and they brought it to his house. I
Yeah,
don't. What's the problem there?
but who filmed it and made it like a commercial?
Yeah,
That's
I don't know.
yeah. Anyway,
But wouldn't you if you were delivering to Donald Trump, whether he was president or not?
it just happens to be Tesla.
Yeah.
I still think it would have been more professional to.
If I were to buy an electric vehicle, that's the only vehicle I would buy was Tesla. Like I've driven lots of electric vehicles, and they just die really quick. And Tesla, their batteries are pretty amazing.
I guess there is a possibility it's purely innocent and some bystander filmed it, but it's too commercialized for me to.
I see where you're coming from. Yes,
But a lot of that stuff
I'm
needs
a
to
silver
be.
lining guy too, though.
A lot of that stuff needs to be, out of sight, out of mind. Do your deals, whatever. Some people think it's like an effort to help Tesla because their stocks have like dropped in half or whatever. But and it's tough gig. I get that, but I'm not saying this stuff doesn't happen. It's just his was in the spotlight. Because folks, there are backroom deals. There are lobbyists. You know, these things have been happening for a long time. Just this one is like in broad daylight,
Yeah.
showing the purchase of it. And some people brought up like, is GM and Ford upset about this? They get no recognition, but maybe they're like, I don't want my name attached to a politician. Um, anyway, it's interesting. It's I don't know. I don't. I personally don't like it. I think you know I keep trying to tie in, is insider trading part of this? Is this and that? Like, how do all this stuff work? And I'm like, somehow, uh, something. I think there needs to be, some stricter laws about that. Now, if it was some like, Peep and Tom filming it, from over the fence, zooming in, that's one thing of somebody, selling a car. But anyway, it could have. A car could have just got delivered and nobody knew any wiser. That's all I'm saying. Um, yeah, but anyway, what are your guys' thoughts on politicians and promoting products and services? This Hatch Act. Um,
Irish Swagger said, "How is that promotion?" So any president that talked about a vehicle would be a violation of Hatch Act, wouldn't it? If you're going to complain, have a valid complaint.
oh, terrible.
Left hook there at the end.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like stuff more out of sight, out of mind, um, from our politicians. But yeah, I mean, when you're up front representing the world, I guess you want them at a higher standard, you know. But anyway,
It's really easy to get caught up in, just because he is because he's the president, he's a target, especially now
oh
because
yeah,
he's
absolutely.
always in the spotlight. And I'm the guy that I'm a silver lining guy. I
Yeah.
always like to look for the positive and everything.
It could have been an innocent deal, and that's it is what it is. But for some, the video kind of showed it was like it's a little strange. It seemed more like a promotion, but whatever. Two buds doing a deal.
Yeah.
They're in the spotlight, so maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe you're right.
So if you want to support the show, Rixican Show, all lowercase on either PayPal or Cash App. Simplified, and it's in the description.
Yeah. Super Bowl winners, the Eagles, I think, are visiting the White House April 28th.
What?
What? I don't read too much into that, but I guess it's controversial somehow. Ukraine's got a 90-day ceasefire, and I guess some deals are being made. We'll see. That's been a roller coaster, so I'm not putting too much weight into it because it's up and down, up and down. I think it, I think my personal belief, right, my biased opinion is I think some backroom deals have been made, and I'm like Russia gets Ukraine, the United States gets Canada, China gets Taiwan. I think there's a deal that's been made kind of like that, and we'll see how it unfolds in the future.
Here's what Ira Swagger said back to you. When he offered up his property at a discounted price through the White House channels was a crap thing to do. Um, Bragging about a car is not an issue.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Um, Man, at Rick's we got a few specials going on. We got mac and cheese on Friday. This will be our third week doing it. We'll see how it goes. The last 2 weeks we sold out, so pretty excited about that. And then it, it, it it's tough to do some of these things because is there enough demand to do it every Friday as a special, or do I need to mix it up? But I got a little pizza oven, so I think the following week, hopefully, we'll have our pizza figured out and we'll do a pizza special.
I like pizza.
Yeah, I'm pretty.
Logic really prefers Red Baron pizza for some reason.
Yeah, frozen.
But right, Logic Red Baron. That's your style.
Yeah, frozen
I like
pizza.
I like Red Baron,
Uh,
especially in a air fryer.
oh man, we got a karaoke contest coming up, and this is bigger than me. People keep asking me questions about it. I'm just the hosting the location, but it's I guess a big event where you pay $25 so you compete locally, and then the top people will go to state, and it'll be in like Seattle, Spokane, or someplace, and they'll compete there. And then the top people there will probably go to like Las Vegas and compete there for the championship. And I think the winner gets like 6 grand or something. So kind of a cool little deal. And so anyway, come on down. You can hear me sing and win this thing. I'm a very average singer, folks. So so
I've invited a few folks. I saw the flyer today. I was waiting for Rick to get here. He was running behind.
yeah, yeah.
I'm like, hey, I'm going to promote the
The
karaoke.
people that do karaoke, they love this stuff. And so right now it's booked on the in May, the Saturdays in May. So you can sign up on the USA K karaoke, whatever it's called, and um, you can sign up. We got Wing Wednesday today. Our wings have been selling out. Burgers have been selling. I think with the other businesses kind of in town closing down, my lunch numbers have been going up, and so we've been running. So as soon as this show's over, I have to make the Rick Secret sauce, the tomatillo ranch, and I've got to make fresh salsa.
Yeah,
So
he brought fresh salsa to our barbecue. At least it tasted fresh.
people like I did. I just made it.
Yeah, and it was getting eaten up, and then he took it with him.
Yeah, I don't like to share.
When you go to a barbecue, you're supposed to leave the stuff behind you brought.
No,
Yeah.
never.
Like, you brought your wallet, leave it there.
Leave it there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Take my wallet.
No, thank you, because there's probably bills in it.
There, bills that you could spend.
Oh,
Yeah, so we went out to eat, and we went out to sushi in town, and I I paid cash for it, and my daughter was like, "What really do you do, Dad?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Is Rick's just a front?" I'm like, "Well, the kid's 14." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean a front?" She's
yes.
like, you bought me something and paid cash, and then you were out to eat, and you whipped out 100, and what's going on, Dad? And I'm like, yes, Rick's is a front.
Careful.
No, it's not. And I'm like, so what do you think it is I really do? And she like said something like, I won't say on the air. And I'm like, no, don't do that. I'm like, I work 2 jobs, kid. Like, probably you could stretch me into 5 jobs, but I have 2 main jobs I do. I swing a hammer and I have a Rick's, and then I help out in a couple other things. But like, I'm like, I work, I'm busy, you know, and if you want to go out to eat again, I got to work, costs money.
Yep.
So anyway, is Rick's a front, guys? Let me know if you think Rick's is a front. What is it that I really do? Yeah. I exploit homeless people and sell them. No, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm sure because you own a business that you suffer the pain like other people do, and you accept credit cards. But did you know that most companies can take 2 or more days for the funds to end up in your bank account? Many of them are extremely high rates, especially with reward cards and program cards. The parallel economy gets you your money the very next day in your bank account. Plus, there's no contracts, 24 by 7 merchant support, and they'll match or beat your current rate with rates as low as 1.49%. Go ahead and click on the link below in the subscription,
Hmm.
Rick.
I can't say anything that would violate the Hatch Act. I don't claim nor deny. Um, so let's talk about something I actually know something about. Something in my pay grade.
Hey, what?
Tracking. Um, Tracking, I'm talking about footprints before the days of drones, tracking. So um, recently, if anyone following Oregon, there was a little girl that went missing. And uh, by the time they call off the search, uh, a dive team that specializes in finding people came in and in like 2 hours found the child uh, like at the bottom of the water. And they had boats and they were scanning and doing stuff, but until they brought in the professionals that are good at what they do, um, they weren't able to find the child. Anyway, the child was deceased. Terrible story, but they spent, days and days searching, and they thought maybe someone took her or whatnot. But terrible, terrible thing.
I couldn't imagine.
Um, but until they brought in the people that were good, the child wasn't found, and so it's hard to predict. Like, did they get lucky and just find the kid, or these guys just rather than go over the water, they went in it and looked and found the child. So tracking is kind of a similar thing. You could take a course, an hour course, and be like, all right, you're trained, you can do search and rescue. And then, they're like, comb the desert, comb the jungle. And they go out and search and, and their results aren't as good as someone that is an amazing tracker. Like if you get the best, they will find you. Um, and so there's 2 people that I know that have taught this. Kevin Reeve, who's deceased now, um, and he had quite the little group that followed him. Um, some hardcore military guys. He taught SEALs, um, bunch of stuff, and then a mercenary, Doug. Um, and these Doug, they called the 2 week man. And in the first Desert Storm, when they had the deck of cards, the 52 most wanted, they would drop them off with a team. They would go chase footprints, and in a week or two, they get a call, and the helo would come in, and they have a guy hogtied. Like that's what he did. Um, anyway, Kevin Reeve was telling a story about a guy. He's the craziest guy I've ever dealt with. Da, 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 da. And I was like, I was in Kevin's class. I go, are you talking about Doug? He goes, yeah, you know Doug? I was like, a little bit. Um, but he's like, he's the craziest guy. And anyway, he'd be telling stories. But basically, most of the methods out there that teach tracking are based off the Apache Indians. Remember that in the Old West, the Apache Indians escaped and evaded the U.S. military for 2 years. Geronimo and his team. And they would brag that they were so good that they could wear a red bandana around their forehead and you still couldn't find them or see them. If you saw them, they wanted you to see them. And so um, they have a way of walking. Um, they have there's different methods, and when they teach it, we take sand and we'd rake it out, make it kind of smooth, and then you would walk on it, and they would start showing you that say, hey, you have a stride like this, your foot size is this, and we'd make a little stick, you put a couple rubber bands on it, and you could measure, and you can get the stride um, on it. And so if your stride from toe to heel is so far, um, as they're walking, you start off on some sand, and because it shows makes it easy when you're learning, and you can say, oh, the stride is this far, and then you get to a point where you know the ground isn't so sandy, and you're not quite seeing a footprint, but you can take that stride stick and you can span it and go, okay, somewhere in here there should be a stride, the next footprint, and then you might see a little rock that's turned, and you're like, okay. And then you go from there, and you can track them. You've seen hints of it in the movies, but it's like what you don't know. And if you can track a human, you can track any animal in the world. If you're a hunter, and I've had in the military, we did a little manhunt deal, and nobody found me. And all the hunters that were talking smack, I crushed them because they don't know the tricks to the trade, and they didn't know I knew what I knew because I had been trained outside of the military. And so tracking people on gravel, they're like, it doesn't leave a footprint, you know. So how do you track that? They get on asphalt. How do you do that? How do you get back to what you're doing? So tracking footprints. So it's great for search and rescue. Um, Techniques for tracking blood. If someone's wounded, um, how do you know if they're tired, injured? Does how they walk change? Each person, just like your fingerprint, each person has a unique way that they walk. Your stride, the pitch of your feet. Are you goofy footed? Are you pigeon toed? How you walk. You know, do you club your heels? How you release on your toes? These things also tell you the direction of your next step. So if you're taking a hard left turn, you know, your toe release is going to show me approximately where your next step is going to be, left or right, as you release. And so they would practice walking down, and then we would jump to one side of the trail or the other, jump, step, whatever, and then you do your easy tracking. Okay, which way did he go? You know, and then you start going, okay, let's. Then somebody gets clever and they walk backwards. Can you tell if someone's walking backwards? Um, and there's little things that change when you walk backwards. Your stride shortens. So if you have a general idea of how, if you have a baseline on somebody, when there's a change, you can take note. It's like, oh, a normal person walking, they're like, oh, every step's 3 feet, 3 feet, 3, 6, 9, 12, for example. Now, if you walk backwards, you're like, hey, why is his step only 2 feet? What changed? And you can look a little closer and see the releases in the dirt or sand and be like, oh, this person's walking backwards. Now you're getting into something animals don't necessarily do. You know, they're off instinct, but humans, we can strategize. So like, oh, I'm gonna walk backwards. Um, and so how do you do that? What if you put on a smaller pair of shoes? Could you tell that they were, you know, that they changed into a child, like, try to trick you. Like, oh, it's a child, wrong footprint. And you go elsewhere. Um, uh, could you so the Apache Indians, they the tribes are at war. I know we have a lot of ideas about natives and, this is their land, this is my land, and we all have these ideas. But many of the tribes were at war. So the Apache Indians were already like survivalists because other tribes were, you know, they were fighting. And so at a young age, you know, when it's time to be join the Cub Scouts, right? They would take these kids and they would have to take a mouthful of water and they would make them run up the mountain and come back down. And when they got back down, they had to spit out that water. Um, and those that couldn't could not be scouts, could not be trackers because they lacked discipline. So at a young age, they would determine if you had the mental fortitude to be a warrior, to be a scout, to be a tracker, um, and that type of discipline. Because you had to be quiet. Um, to run up a mountain without breathing through your mouth, you're breathing through your nose. Hopefully, you don't have a cold. To accomplish this task. Um, and so, um, anyway, there was a lot of discipline involved. Now, they would take a piece of leather and they would tie, the exact length of their stride. And so when they walked, they all had the same step, the same stride. Um, and sometimes at night when they came to an intersection, they would sometimes tie a piece of leather and then they would walk across. But what it did is it allowed, if they all walked the same, when you cross a road and the next guy has the same stride and he crosses the road in the dark at night, they would all step in each other's footprints. So it only looked like one person had crossed the path, not 30. Their shoes, right, being leather bottoms and not a gridded boot. Uh, the moccasin leaves a very subtle print. So it's harder to track. A little bit of wind and whatever, because it just leaves an impression without a distinct tread print. Like the bottom of our modern shoes. Um, but it's a crazy process. So you're out there tracking people. So anyway, let's go back to Doug and some of the things that he's besides catching bad guys. Well, these are, I guess, supposedly bad guys. So he was hired. Um, there was poaching going on in an area in a national forest or something, and the rangers couldn't figure out who it was. No matter how hard they tried for 5 years, they couldn't figure out who it was that was poaching these animals. All they would find is the remains, the thing's gutted, its head's there, whatever, but the meat was gone. Like somebody was good. So after like 5 years of trying to chase this poacher, they hired Doug. And so Doug goes out for a day and then he comes back and he says, I need a weapon. He says, you're not going after one person, you're going after two people. And they go, what do you mean? Like, they're walking each other's footprints. And so Doug's like, I need a weapon. These guys are trained. Um, and he's like, I'm not going out into your weapon free zone because, you know, these guys have a boomstick and there's more than one. Um, and he says, he just caught, when they're walking at each other's footprints, he caught, a tread over a tread, but they weren't, perfect. And he's like, wait a second. Um, so they finally agree and they let him have a boomstick. And he goes back into the national forest. And for, several days, he's he's following these footprints. And then he finally comes up on him. And they both have their weapons drawn on him. And and they go up to him. They go, "Let me see your boots." And they wanted to see his footprint on his boots, the tread. And they're like, "Yeah, you're the guy who's been following us." And he goes, "Yeah, I've been hired to find you guys because you're poaching animals." And It's got to stop. So they finally agree to surrender, the two guys. And don't get me wrong, Doug, Doug's crazy. So I'm not sure if it was a nice verbal exchange or whatnot, but he can handle his own. So uh, they agreed to surrender, and they said, I think they had poached an animal once upon a time, and one of their friends or neighbors were blackmailing them that if they didn't bring a meat every year, that they would turn them in. So they were kind of caught in this cycle, and they were like, "We're glad this is over. Let's put it behind us." They paid their fine, and they couldn't hunt for several years. Uh, but anyway, these two guys were rangers and military training. Vietnam vets that had some skills um, that Doug had to hunt down. Um, Another instance on the Canadian border, he shares a story where he was training. I think he had two SEALs and some police and whatever up on the Canada border. He was teaching a tracking class, and there was a prison transfer, and two guys escaped, and they couldn't find them. And he goes, "Well, guys, you want to do the real thing, or do you want to sit here and practice?" So they're like, well, "Let's do the real thing." So they the prisoners had a 4 hour head start, and they said by the time they got notice, and he said within 2 hours, he said I had him, and so he's like, to him, he's like, it looked like an elephant went through this grass field, but to an untrained eye, it'd be a little harder to see or notice. But he's like, to me, it was like an elephant went through this field, and I noticed their stride was getting shorter and shorter. He's like, I knew they were exhausted, um, and so he's like, I was teamed up with a SEAL. We come around the corner. Says we have two beautiful black weapons aimed at them, and they're like, it's time to give it up, boys. And they grabbed these guys and brought them back. Search and rescue. You, uh, I know it takes a little extra work, but if you took a picture of your shoe, the bottom of your shoe, and next to a ruler, and you put that in an envelope in your car, if you ever go out hiking with your family, whatnot, if somebody got lost or you did, if they identify that that's your car, they will open it up, and if there's an envelope in there, you could put a little note on it. Hey, if I'm lost, read this, whatever. Or Doug would be like, call me and I'll get a hold of that info. And he's like, I'll find you. And he's like, I can find you at night. I can find you in the day. Search and rescue, they call off at night. But he's like, Doug's like, I can track you in the dark. Like I'm that good. He's so um, but it's just getting to you know, the last known track and verifying that it's your shoe. Without that information, you're like, well, I guess he's a size 10, but how many people on that trail that day are a size 10, 12, 11, to figure that stuff out. So all those clues are very, very important um, to own it, to own that person. You'd be like, once he's like, once you got the baseline, their shoe tread, he's like, I own you. I will find you. Um, so those things are kind of a interesting concept. There's tricks to tracking blood. There's tricks to tracking different scenarios. Um, Now with that, today we have drones. Now over that little, if you're lost in the woods, I doubt there's drones photographing the hourly remapping the earth, where any disturbance is picked up and they can overlap each picture digitally and go, huh, there's been some movement here and then some movement here. Oh, those are coyotes. And there's been some movement here and there's been some, like they can track uh, kind of like when you see in the movies, the old days are like, oh, there's a satellite coming, everybody go inside. Now we have drones. You're not waiting for satellites. Now we have drones, satellites, and everything that they can map out, and the footage is good enough that they can determine a footprint disturbance. They'll be flying up, up high enough, but it can see these things. It can know these things. So out in the open desert, yeah, you can see a lot, but in the woods, it's a little tougher. It's a lot tougher to figure this stuff out. Anyway, tracking footprints. It's a crazy thing, but it's kind of cool. It's not very difficult to pick up learning it either. Like I taught a class here in Moses Lake, and they were picking it up real fast. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of learning a few tricks to it. And once you get it, if you're taught some of the tricks, man, it can go a long, long way. Um, and it if you lose a child, you're on a hike and lose a child, that is like that's a great skill to have if you're an outdoors person, to be like, oh, I know a thing or two about that. Um, it gets you. I mean, you're really getting down into the nitty gritty of nature. I mean, as you're doing it, a lot of things are compatible with tracking. Um, and Doug, and Doug's a crazy guy. Um, he um, he was teaching a bunch of youth this stuff. It's basically a bunch of mini assassins running around. He had these 16, 18-year-olds, and he was teaching them how to track, how to do martial arts, how to do like it was Boy Scouts on steroids. You know, these kids went and competed against a SWAT team. It was like an airsoft tournament, and like they beat the SWAT team 3 out of 4 games. And he said the SWAT team guys were so mad that these little kids were just whooping them. But it was like I just teach them, real tactics, and um, against these guys that feel that they're professionals, because they're kicking indoors and have the element of surprise, but now you're going against people that uh, have been trained, equally or differently, um, and their element of surprise no longer works when you're dealing with another trained person. So the SWAT team was getting frustrated. Um, all their lasers gave their positions away. all the tech they had on their weapon systems was hurt them against these kids. Um, and they had to take off their lasers. They had to take off all their lights. They had to take off everything off their weapon systems. And they had to change something else up to win the last game against these kids. But anyway, things you don't think about, because people like their gear and their toys. But um, anyway, getting a little sidetracked on tracking, but footprints are an interesting thing. So if you ever spend time outside, um, it's definitely worth learning a thing or two about it. Search and rescue does a very minimal job just teaching you, like, hey, this is a footprint and it looks like this. Ready to go. They're kind of into that, where you can take it 10 times farther than that. Um, and they would do then you do counter tracking, right? Then and with you're with a group of people that do it, then you start playing, the little hide and go seek game with it. You're hunting people, and then uh, from there, it it goes into a much more, I guess, exciting game where if you have people hunting you, um, and this is where in a previous one I talked about how to escape and evade a dog. Some of these things by playing these games is how they learned how to escape and evade, you know, a trained a trained dog, because they were doing manhunts. and then they would have a dog come in and try to get you. So, so there are many different environments of training, but the tracking was a foundational piece, and it's a dying art. Like like Kevin Reeve passed away, you know, Doug does it. There's a few other people that teach it in the United States, but it is like a dying art um, to learn some of these things that the Apaches knew, some of the natives knew how to do that. And like I say, they escaped and evaded the Apaches did the U.S. military for like 2 years. They finally surrendered, and they're like, "We're just tired of running," and they finally surrendered. But they probably could have kept on going for some time further. But I guess it's probably exhausting to be on the run. Um, but the value in it, the tracking, is in a certain scenario, can I get from point A to point B and no one knew I was there? To me, that's a huge value. Um, a lot of survivalists, they're going to be, you know, they make a lot of noise. You know, that they want their, weapons be ablazing, and I guess I advocate for, can I get from point A to point B and possibly back, and no one ever knew I was there? To me, that is of greater value than um, to being anonymous, to being unknown. To it, I think that holds more power than you know go out blazing. Um, because now everybody's like, oh, this new thing exists. This guy's blazing. This guy's like out there making a lot of noise. Uh, uh, that person becomes a spotlight. Now that person's a target. But moving in secrecy is valuable. And if you can track, can you get to the point where you're not leaving any trace of that you've been there? Um, and they don't like those methods being taught, folks. I won't even say it on the air. Um, of how not to leave a print. Um, and that's where it gets, I guess, a little deep because our society, they want, you got your cell phone, they can track you. You got all this stuff, but when you leave it all behind and you step off and disappear, and they can't find you anymore, I would say they don't like that so much. Your ability to disappear. So, little tidbits on tracking, folks. Footprints. Like I say, it's not rocket science. They're just little tricks of the trade. Um, you know, I mean, to a certain degree, hunters kind of do it. They're like, "Oh, deer sign. There's prints, and it's kind of going this direction," and they follow it. But they're following an instinctual animal. If you can follow and hunt someone that can counter track, game on. It's a different ball game. You know, uh, doing that type of thing. So maybe one of these days we'll put together a manhunt. People be like, manhunt. What, can you survive? Are you the old?
That'd be fun.
Well, they have, you see these TV shows and they're like hiding themselves in furniture and like, doing weird stuff. And these guys are finders. And there's been TV shows with a guy on the horse and they go track people. But yeah, I guess there's a thing, can you play hide and go seek with the big boys, and you have to escape and evade and not be seen. Um, so that, yeah, it's a crazy, crazy thing, but it'd be kind of fun. Most of this stuff happens, you train during the day and then you implement it at night
Yeah.
is most of how this training goes. And you wake up the next morning and you would train during the day, learn all the tricks, and then at night you're running around and you have people hunting you down. So it's kind of, I guess, a version of capture the flag, um, is, but just kind of upper scale. But anyway, I know not everybody's interested in footprints, but it is a unique trade or skill to have. So I think it's a foundational piece if you're an outdoorsman and into the prepping thing. But anyway, is there any topic out there that somebody would like to know on the survival side, prepper side? I don't claim to know everything, but I just happen to have messed around in a few areas, you know, uh, that maybe you know more than I do. Like one of my weaknesses would be comms. Like I know communication's super important. I just I need somebody else to handle that for me because my interests have been elsewhere. So I mean, like I don't know everything, but I I know enough to be dangerous. This time it's personal. So, um, well, until next time, thanks for joining us. If there's enough people that have an interest in tracking, I could always throw another, you know, class together. We can go out to the sand dunes or something and play around. But it's just if there's an interest. But if there's not, no big deal. I know it's there's not a lot of people that know a lot about it, so I know it's kind of like a you know cool thing. But like I said, you spend a day doing it, you'd be better than any search and rescue person out there. A couple hours with me, so of course I might be rusty. It's been a few years since I've had to do it, but I mean the basics are the basics. It's like riding a bike. So, all right, let's wrap this up. Thanks for joining us. If you're looking for a great burger, Rick's, fish tacos, Rick's, macaroni and cheese this Friday, karaoke tournament coming up. Come on down and say hi. I'd appreciate it. I'm signing out.
Peace.